Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another uh, Ask Me Anything or NPAN Live, as we like to refer to them. Today, I've got a really exciting one. We've been very process oriented in our last few, and today we're joined by Abbe Turner, owner of Lucky Penny Farms, as well as she's the owner of the farm. She's also a grant curator, grant writer, small business coach, among many other things. She wears a lot of hats, and I will let her introduce herself. But today is all about small business, startup, access to capital, writing award-winning grants, all of those exciting things that are very pertinent to all of us right now. We've seen so many grants in the last couple of years, and we're seeing some of those awards land right now. And there may be more in the future. And I know a lot of folks through the NPAN community have been very curious about how to approach those situations with a little bit more clarity, because it can be kind of intimidating. And I've worked with Abby on a couple of projects, and she's just everybody loves Abby. That's the consensus across the board. And so we're really, really happy that she's joined us today. And I'll talk a little bit more about her and how she works with NPAN in a few moments. Really quick, if this is your first time on one of our Ask Me Anythings, I just want to talk about who we are just very briefly. We're the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network based out of Oregon State University. We're half extension group, half trade group. We're housed at the university, but we are very much out in the trade group world, and we're kind of an amalgamation of several different groups. So we're made up of small to very small uh, meat processors, retail butcher shops, livestock producers, industry reps, academia, extension agents, and the whole nine yards. And this year, we've grown. We're closer to 30% livestock producers now, and our meat brands have shot up to about 20%. So we've got a slightly different demographic for mid 2024, and we're very excited to see that type of growth. Our mission at NPAN, we're a nonprofit. We are here to help small meat processors thrive by it's a shared wealth. This is a hive mind. We have several different resources. We've got a Facebook group that is heavily moderated. It's a trade group where people go for quick advice. And then we also have a Google group. It's known as the NPAN listserv, and it is the best small meat processing, almost live help desk out there. It's fantastic. You can go there and ask any question that you need help with, free of judgment. It's probably the most supportive trade group that I've ever been a part of, and I know I'm partial to it because I manage NPAN's program, but it never ceases to surprise me how helpful and willing to share information people are in that group. So I highly recommend if you haven't joined the NPAN listserv, please do go on Google Groups and Google our name and join up today. I moderate it. I'll let you in, and we'd love to have you. And so, one other thing I'd like to talk about before we jump in, if you're and Abby's going to talk about this a little bit later, but you may be familiar with the Meat and Poultry Processing Technical Assistance Program. You may not be familiar with that. And if you're not, what that is it's a USDA Agriculture Marketing Service funded grant that allows several organizations like NPAN, as well as AMP. Abby Davidson from AMP is here today. It has funded our organizations to provide free technical assistance on a variety of subject matters to our membership. There's no strings attached. There's no catch. There's no sales pitch. We just have several people like Abby who have specialties who you can book free consulting time with to work through some of your issues. Everything from financial management, plant operations, food safety, plant audits, cutting technical skill, grant assistance, and the whole nine yards. And I'd like to share with you quickly how to go about doing that. So if you log on to our website, nichemeatprocessing.org, here at the top, I'll put this link in the chat so you don't have to copy that down. And at the very top of our page, there's a link that says technical assistance. If you click on that and come to our page, you will see a list of names and specialties. And you can click on any of these links at any time and schedule free calls with these consultants. And all of our consultants are people who do this work every day. They're boots on the ground experts who are donating their time to this program. And we have just about everything in the industry covered here with a high level expert. So we do invite you to take advantage of this. It's been paid for. We don't want to leave the money on the table, and we want to be able to reach as many people as possible. We have to date helped over 320 different organizations with their projects, and some of these projects have really grown, and these organizations have developed relationships with these consultants and gone on to have larger projects. So we do highly encourage you to use this, and we'd love to see you on there. So Abby will talk a little bit more later about how to get in touch with her and how she can help. And I'm also going to pass the mic to Abby now. As you know, or as you can hear, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat today, feeling a little under the weather, so I'll probably be a little quiet. Before I pass it, one last thing. We love questions. This is an Ask Me Anything. We want you to bring anything that's challenging you, or you may want to ask about, given any of these subjects that Abby is an expert in. Please fire away. This is kind of a round table halfway through after Abby's done with her presentation. We'd love you to bring whatever you've got to the board, and we'll work on it here as a group. So come one, come all. This is a pretty informal situation, and just know that there's no wrong or stupid questions here. The high tide floats all boats, and that's why we're here. So thanks for joining us today. And from here, Abby, we're so happy to have you. Thanks for being with us. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. If you would allow me to share my screen by making me host, that'd be great. First, I want to say thank you all for joining in the morning or your lunch hours. I appreciate the time, and I'm glad that you've made a choice to make time in making your food and farm-based business better. I am going to run through a couple things today in this Ask Me Anything session, but it is informal, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. We will cover a variety of topics, and we could go very, very long, but they all kind of tie together, which is grant readiness and making sure that you are able to secure good funding. So let's go ahead here. And okay, slideshow. Let's go to the slideshow. Okay. All right. So ask me anything. We are going to talk a little bit about, sorry about that. My apologies. Oh. I apologize in advance too. If it gets a little bit loud here, this is a working farm. There'll be people coming and going, but I have my teenage son. He's standing at the door to make sure that nobody interrupts us today. So yes, this is me, Abbe Turner. I am delighted to be a technical assistant with the Niche Meat Processing Assistance Network. I have a small farm. We raise dairy goats, meat goats, some rattle cattle. And during the pandemic, I bought a local food distribution route as a means to distribute my own products. Most of our accounts were restaurants, and when the restaurants closed, I needed to find a way to sell my stuff. So we bought a local food business, which is called Mushroom Harvest Provisions. My day job is I am a grant writer and a development director for an organic certification organization. And that keeps things pretty busy, but it keeps me in the farming and the fundraising world combined. So we're going to start with just the basics, knowing your story and telling your story. Why is this important? This is important because these grants, all grants, are highly competitive, and you want to make sure that what makes you unique and why this funding is important for your organization would benefit you now. Why now? Why you? You have to really tell your story as to what makes you deserving the funding, what makes you unique, and having the ability to clearly communicate with the funder the person that knows nothing about you, the elements of your story that you're trying to convey. You know, what do you sell? Are you a multi-generational farm? Do you have a vision for a new value-added product? Basically, who you are and why it's important that that the funders give you the opportunity to grow your business in a meaningful way. So telling your story is very important for the success of your grant. In order to find your story, you need to find your own voice. And I put this here because as someone that also works as a grant reviewer, I read sometimes the same story over and over and over again. And sometimes it's really hard when there's, 100 or 200 applications for a limited pool of funds to determine who really can use those funds and amplify them to grow their food or farm-based business. The ability for you to find your own voice and share that, share your vision will help you maintain a competitive edge in this funding. So when many of these grants require you to have a level of readiness. And I'm sure most everybody here, has their business already formulated, but all of these things, to some extent, will be required for you to be able to be successful with an element of grant writing or with your business. There's certain things here that you might need, and there's other things here that you might grow into. A bank account, separate EIN number, liability insurance, having your name registered. Those are all, the basics, but you may not have a website or a social media presence. I work with a lot of Amish producers and they don't have social media. They do just fine without it. But it might be something that you might find beneficial as a sales channel for your food or farm-based business. And that also comes along with certain licensing. So, what are the appropriate things that you need to be in regulatory compliance for your shop or your processing facility to make sure that you have legal right to sell and that you're adhering to all the food safety rules and regulations. The last two items on this list are things that you will need if you're planning to apply for federal funding, and that is your SAM.gov registration and your UEI. SAM is the System Award Management, and then the UEI is the Unique Entity Identification, ID. They are two distinct things, and they both need to be done. And we can dig a little bit deeper on that when we talk a little bit about grant processes and making sure that you're filling out the forms correctly when you go to apply for whatever federal funding opportunity. So we've mentioned grants. Well, obviously there's plenty of other places to get funding too. And this is just a list of the pots of money that I've been able to access to be able to start my business. And over time, some are more successful than others, and not everyone's going to be right for you. But most people that I work with in terms of the technical assistance consulting, many are using their private money. So this could be money from retirement accounts or credit cards to start things, home equity loans, and then savings from jobs. Many, I can say many, folks are working off farm income. And this is something that has been historically a way to provide health insurance benefits to the family. One partner might work off farm and then another, may be dedicated solely to your business operation. So private money obviously is an important source. There's also investors, and this could be quiet, slow money from family and friends who believe in the power of local food, or it could be a small group of investors that want to see small business thrive in your rural community or metropolitan community. There's also the ability to apply for small grants. We're going to talk a little bit about federal grants, but these are a great way to get started. My business started with a $400 farm aid grant for a cheesemaking class. And that led to 12 years of running a successful creamery and selling over 50,000 pounds of goat cheese. It all began with the farm aid grant. And those smaller grants are easy, or let me say easier, and a great way to get started. Gives you confidence, and it also allows funders to see that, yes, you in fact have successfully applied for a grant, done the reporting, and met the expectations of some of these smaller funders. SARE is also another great place to start. SARE is Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. They have a whole variety of different categories that you can apply for. There's research, there's partners, there's farmer rancher, and I think there's a few other, but it is part of the Farm Bill, and they are really great grants that often fund research, on-farm research that might not also have other funding opportunities. So make sure that you take a look at the SARE grants. Next on the list is crowdfunding, and this is something that has grown in success over the years, and it's a wonderful way to engage your community, those that are loyal to you and your product, your service, your butcher shop, and get them involved and let them feel that they have a piece in your success. And that's something that can be very strong in community. We did a Kickstarter ended up being about $14,000 to purchase a new steam kettle. And the only thing that we had to do was, give them a finished product, or the people that could donate it. We ended up having, I think, maybe 30 some people to meet that goal. And you give gifts back or opportunities back, a private farm to table dinner, or a pound of, whatever product you're making, to your donors that contribute to help your business grow. The CSA model, many folks use the CSA model as a way to come up with funds. And as farmers know, most CSA models, the funds are due to the farm early in the season. This allows for any infrastructure investments or improvements that you need to make early in the season, seed purchases, new equipment purchases to expand potentially a new line or an income line for your farm operation. So CSAs are a great way to bring money in at a particular time of need for your business. Sales, obviously that is what we do to bring money into our businesses. This could be wholesale, direct to consumer, farmers markets, and then there's a variety of online platforms that you can have on there. There's Graze, there's Market Wagon. I use Barn to Door. So there's many that you can use an online platform to be able to provide yet one more channel for your customers to be able to buy from you, excuse me. And then, as many of us do, working part-time gigs through it all to save up for that next piece of equipment that you might need, which, maybe you need a bigger sausage stuffer, whatever it is to get to that next place to be able to expand your business. There's also other grants that farmers can apply for, and I'm sure that you've seen many of these. The EQIP grants, which are part of the conservation grants. There also are very valuable things like the local food promotion program, which can provide financial support for middle of the supply chain producers to expand local and regional food systems. Value-added producer grants, we've been blessed to have 2 of those, and I can talk a little bit later. I know that there's other grant writers on the call here too that are very strong in assisting in writing value-added producer grants. Stephen, I see you're here. So we can make sure that we ask and answer any questions about the value-added producer grants. The nice thing about value-added producer grants is, again, they can help you fund expansion of a particular product line, taking raw material and changing it into a different finished product. But the planning grants can be operational, and then, the value-added producer grants can be operational and planning grants. So if you have an idea, say you want to, look to do a particular line of artisan meats or sausage or jerkies, you might be able to do a planning grant to test the market and do some feasibility work to see whether or not that's actually something that would pencil for your business. Next on the list is SARE. We talked a little bit about SARE, and again, I've had multiple SARE grants, and they're really a great place to start as well. Food Animal Concerns Trust is an easier grant to get, and many farmers have good success with this because it is about humane living conditions for animals. They'll fund fencing or lighting or cages or chutes. And I encourage you to go to their website, take a look at their funding opportunities, as the application is not hard, and also is another great place to start your grant writing journey. So, grant writing. Tips and tricks for success. So I didn't start writing large federal grants. I started with very small grants. As I mentioned, the Farm Aid grant for $400 started it all and rolled into another, yet another, yet another. Right now, I try to write a goal for my operations. I try to write an average of 1 grant a month. Now, this is very misleading because during the summer, I don't have time to write anything. There's weeks I can't get anything done, it seems. But January, February, March, when it's quieter, I can crank stuff out. I find that January and February are really just a wonderful time for grant writing. This doesn't always work with the schedule for when the grants are due. So often what I'll do during this time is do my readiness and make sure that my bio is updated, make sure that I have appropriate resumes on hand or information about maybe new staff that I've hired. It also is a time, the wintertime is also a great time for strategic planning, knowing where I want to go. Having that plan in place will know what money I can apply for to be able to grow in that direction. And it'll also prevent me from kind of going astray on some harebrained schemes for a new business idea, which, has happened before. You don't want that to happen. You may think it's a great idea, but is it really where your business needs to go? When you write these grants, you have to make time in your own schedules to be able to do so. I block off time on my calendar. It's on Monday mornings. It's my office time. And, everybody knows, don't book anything for me then because I need to focus on writing. If you don't block your own time and if you don't set yourself up to be able to have focus time, you won't get it. We're all super busy and, someone calls off and we have to fill in. Protect that time because you need to plan for dedicated hours of writing. And you also, even after you get the grant, you have to plan for dedicated hours for the reporting and making sure that you are meeting the goals of the grant or the objectives that you set forth in your application. You also want to get help when you do your grant writing. Build a team of support, and if you're weak in a particular area, hire out. I'm not great with spreadsheets. I'm not fast with them, but I have a friend on my team that I can just say, hey, Jennifer, here's what I need. Boom, boom, boom. And this beautiful spreadsheet will come back to me. And it's everything that I was trying to say in a Word doc in 3 pages. And the picture is clear. Hire out where you're weak. If you're not a strong writer, maybe you are great with spreadsheets. If you're not a strong writer, maybe someone, in your community would be willing to trade for, a couple pounds of meat or a CSA share, in exchange for doing the writing for you. If it's something that you're not comfortable doing, see if you can outsource it and find someone to assist you to help you get the project done. So getting the project done. This seems like a really obvious one, the first bullet point here, and that's reading the application requirements carefully, especially the allowable expenses. This week I'm doing some grant reviewing, and it makes me so sad when there's great projects, but the applications aren't complete. They haven't submitted what was requested in the grant application, in order to make a complete package. Um, Make sure you're answering the questions. If they're asking about 2-year cash flow projections, answer that question. Don't just think that, your business plan from 5 years ago dropped in that space is going to be enough. It probably won't. Be sure to answer the questions that are asked on the grant application. When you're building out your answers to these questions, I want you to be reasonable with yourself as well. When you see construction projects getting done in 6 months, that's, to me, I haven't been able to accomplish that yet, unless, you have a family member that owns a construction company. Things take longer than expected, and they often cost more than expected. So make sure be kind to your future self by allowing a longer timeline and a slightly bigger budget than you think you're going to actually need. With many of these, the meat grants and the meat money that has been floating around, things look very different in 2021 when we budgeted things. And now they're much more expensive. So, make sure that you're putting enough money to cover what you need to do truly, in these project budgets. The next point here is really important, and that's reaching out to whether or not it's the USDA representative early in the process or a technical assistant early in the process, or reaching out to somebody else that may have gotten the grant before you. You can look at let's use the value-added producers. You can look at the value-added producers grant and see who got the funding, or you can look at some of these meat grants and see who gets the funding and reach out to them and say, hey, you have a sausage project. I'm thinking about starting a sausage project. What did you find that worked? What were the barriers? Gosh, was there something that happened that you didn't expect, good or bad? And most people are willing to share. They're not going to give you the secret sauce recipe, but most people are willing to talk about their experiences with these grants, and you can learn a lot. You may not follow their advice, but it's just one more piece of information which can lead to your success. Get comfortable with the grant applications, about writing things, about grants.gov, and YouTube is a great place to start. Just start, Googling, how do I, what do I need to do to write a successful federal grant, or how do I log on or navigate grants.gov, or how do I get, registered on SAM or my UEI? And YouTube can be a wonderful resource for answering questions if this is something that you haven't done before, or if you just don't quite understand what a particular form is asking for, the SF424A, whatever it is. There's wonderful information online and through technical assistants or grant writers to be able to help you write a successful project. Don't wait until the last minute. I just recently was speaking with someone and asked whether or not they were able to get one of the LFPP grants submitted. And they flat out said that they waited to the last minute to submit. They were having some technical problems. And after 4 or 5 people worked for weeks on an application, they actually physically missed the deadline. And it was a great project, but they waited until the last minute. I like to tell people to get it done a week in advance. That's rare. But 48 hours before the deadline gives you ample time to make any corrections, or if you find out if you need, you didn't fill out the evidence of critical resources or infrastructure, or you need another support letter from the food bank or from one of your customers or one of your farmers, that gives you a little window to get that done to make sure that you have submitted correctly and that you have all of the appropriate documentation that is required. One last thing that I'll say in terms of the tips and tricks is when you know your story and you've done this business plan work and you've done this financial modeling, many of these grants are going to be asking for the same information in their grant applications. So make sure that you are copying everything and you'll be able to recycle a lot of that material for the next grant project. So you write one, it's for fencing or for forage management. Save all that. Everything should be saved. And you may find that there's another grant opportunity that'll present itself that you'll be like, hey, I've already written that. That's going to save me an hour and a half. Now, only put it in the new grant application if it does answer the question, as we talked about earlier. But after a while, with multiple submissions, you'll find that you do have a grass management piece, and you will have a value-added piece, and you will have an infrastructure expansion piece written already for your business from a prior application. That's worth gold. I can tell you myself this year, some of the funders have an online application which doesn't save. And I wrote an application this year for building soil, building equity, and our farm got funded. And I literally had to go back to the funder and say, hey, can you send me a copy of my application? Because I didn't keep a copy of what I wrote. And it was an online form only. Well, I had an idea. It was one of 4 things in our business ventures, but save everything because it will be a very important tool for your future success. All right. Why is all this important? Well, we want to work with you to build resilience into your business. Grants can help you diversify your products and markets. They can help you build some redundancies in. Maybe you're working with, a very old piece of equipment. A grant can get you, maybe a new stuffer. And, are you going to get rid of the old stuffer? No, it's a redundancy in case one particular machine goes down. Grants can also help you not overextend your personal finances. And, I know many of us have made significant and personal investments into our food and farm-based businesses. So grant funds are wonderful because they don't need to be paid back like loans. Lean on your network. That, as we talked about earlier, if there's folks, maybe you have, a CSA customer or one of your great, customers in your butcher shop that is a wonderful agricultural attorney. Maybe they can help you set up, whatever you might need. Or do you have an ag accountant, or is there a public relations writer for say, any kind of publication in your community? Maybe these folks can help you move forward in this grant application process in ways that you feel that you might be weak. The next bullet point on here is transparency. Always be transparent. If you don't know something on the application, or if you're weak in that area, it's not wrong to put that in there. I wouldn't go on and on about it, but usually funders will have a way of figuring out that you might be weak in a particular area. So fessing up to it early and saying, hey, this grant funding will help me be stronger in this way, always can be a good thing. And then ask for help. Other people have received successful grants, and other people have been declined from grants. You know, I still write, as I mentioned. I try to write. Actually, you know, between my work and my businesses, you know, I probably am writing one a month, two a month, and well, I still get no's. And at that point, you can often ask the funder. I'm going to have a conversation this week with a funder that, you know, I didn't get a particular grant for. I thought we were a good match. You can reach out and you can say, hey, what ways would my application have been stronger? Or where did I miss the mark? You know, was it in alignment and intent? Maybe you weren't funding, you know, this particular type of equipment or this particular type of agricultural activity. But you can ask the funder, and it'll help you to be stronger on the next application. And then rely on your friends. Here's some of my ladies. Sometimes it's good to talk to them about things too, about what do you need? You know, walking around looking at your farmstead and saying, hey, what do we really need here? Maybe I want this piece of equipment, but maybe really what I need is more fencing so my pigs aren't running down the road and the sheriff is bringing them home. Okay, everything I've said here, all businesses are unique. Every project is different. Every day is different. And anything we talk about here is 30,000 feet. So be sure to contact any professional, legal, tax, or regulatory guidance if you have any questions about anything that you might need an answer to. So there's the disclaimer. So this is pretty close to the end of my presentation, and we'll roll into questions now. I appreciate letting me go on. And if you want to go deeper on any of the things that I've talked about, you can feel free to sign up through Calendly, through the technical assistants, through Niche Meet, where David showed you a little bit earlier, and we can go deeper into your project regarding anything, business expansion, grant readiness, whatever you might be interested in. Here's my consulting page for my grant writing. Just kind of shows some of the different clients that I've worked on. And it's really a delight. I love helping people's businesses grow, and happy to work with you to be able to move your projects forward. Another grant-based project that I did was through SARE, and we wrote a book about 11 women in dairy. My daughter and I did this, and this is a free book. USDA and SARE paid for it, so we have free copies. Feel free to email me if you'd like one. It just talks about starting a food or farm-based business and talks about marketing and much of what we talked about today. But I'm happy to share that with you as we have extra copies. Okay.
Awesome. I'm going to get a copy of that, Abby. I'm excited about that. I didn't know that you had written that. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. I have a bunch of questions here that people popped in the Q&A box, so thank you for using that, everybody. But before I start reading those off, has anybody in the group here got any questions regarding grants or your experiences, or perhaps you're an awardee and have questions about what's next, accessing capital, anything? If you want to pop it in the chat, feel free to turn your mic and your camera on and join us, whatever you like. Otherwise, I will roll with a couple questions that were sent to me in the Q&A box. Oh, we got one from Josh. So let's see. Josh says, what were the two websites you said you'd look for the grants on? And do you know if any grants are out there to start a new further processing plant?
Okay, so one nice place to look for, actually, there's two people that I can send you to for looking for general grant and funding opportunities. One is NSAC, the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition. They have a list of funding opportunities on their website. I know the Michael Field Institute often has a list there as well. And their Rural Action, which is a group that I work with, they also have a nice spreadsheet of some funding opportunities. Just start digging, and you can also ask other, people at the farmers markets or other groups, and maybe people could even pop in the chat right now some grants that they might have had for their operations that we can build a small list here. Okay, and the second question, I didn't write it down, I'm sorry. Oh, David, you're on mute.
Thank you. Second question was, do you know if any grants are out there to start a new further processing plant?
So right now we are between federal funding opportunities for meat and poultry products or projects. So I would suggest continue to look at NMPAN and Flower Hill, and you'll be sure to be notified of any projects that as they come up.
Yeah, great. Okay. And then Abby, before we go, if you don't mind just typing in the chat the places to look for those grants just so the folks can see it. I'm going to jump to a question quick that was in the Q&A box. How detailed should financial documents be for most grants? So I'm assuming P&L, pro formas, like how detailed?
So that depends upon pretty much the funder. Some will just take a P&L and a balance sheet, or a personal financial statement. And then I've seen others that, want the full packet, 5-year projections. So that varies based upon the complexity of the grant. One thing I will say about that is it's very good. This is a do as I say, not as I do. It's very good for you to be always up to date with your finances and accounting. If you're the type of person that just shoves everything in a shoebox and then does it in the winter, that might not help you with grant readiness. But using QuickBooks, trying to keep caught up, as I mentioned, I work with a bookkeeper and an accountant to just keep me in line at all times because I don't have the time and I don't want to work on that. I want to work on other things in my farming operation. So try to keep caught up at all times, because when an opportunity presents itself, sometimes you might find out about a particular grant opportunity that's perfect for you. And of course, it'll be due next week. Well, you might not have time to get your books in order by then, but you might have time to be able to crank out a great application if your finances and your bio and everything is ready.
Excellent. We've got a question in the chat. Can collaboration or partnership increase your success in grant applications?
Yes, very much so. Many grants will actually ask for multiple partners to be involved on the grant. It holds each of you accountable, and it also usually brings in a higher funding amount, which is wonderful too. Like the Sarah grants for farmer rancher, one farmer can get up to $15,000, two can get 30. And the difference between 15 and 30 in a farm-based research project is pretty significant. It also shows that you're invested in community and that you have a value system that cares about your agricultural community, and that that is giving and successful, and then supported, because the funders want to make an investment in your business so that your business benefits the community. It's usually not just for your farm, right? It's to make sure that what you are doing is being able to feed more people, or promoting local food, or building out supply chains during pandemics, whatever it may be. Partnerships are great, and as I mentioned, I've enjoyed them because they hold me accountable. It's like, oh yeah, I got to get that done, as opposed to, pushing something off. So partnerships are wonderful. Establish them early and then document what you do, because once again, that's another readiness thing.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Next question from the Q&A box. What advice do you have for finding private investors?
So I have to say, when I found my private investors and there were 22, it was a different day. So I have to put that out there. It was pre-pandemic and money was flowing a little bit differently. The folks that I worked with, we follow the slow money principles. And for those of you that aren't familiar with slow money is where investors or family friends will make investments in food and farming operations because they believe that food and farming truly matter in our communities. They will often take a lower rate of return, or sometimes it's interest free. And they often will take longer to be paid back. So that's called slow capital. And all of our people, everybody that we work with, understood that I wasn't going to be able to get up to speed very quickly. And it was going to take a minute because I had to build out a whole goat herd of 150 people. So I had to build the farm operation. I had to build the creamery operation, so the processing plant plus the herd, and then build out all those market channels. So things didn't happen fast. I made sure that when I went to talk to people that I had my business plan ready. Now the business plan is maybe it's in a 15th version after 10 years. But it allowed me to sit down with folks to say, hey, I've thought about this. I've thought about my market channels. I know who my customer is or isn't. I know where I'm going to sell it, how it's going to be packaged. Here's my social media, how I'm going to present it. And the business plan really helped because it gave people to look at something, gave them an opportunity to kind of look at my thinking. Was it a pain in the beginning to produce the business plan? Yes. But it helped me answer questions that many of the investors did ask me. How are you going to sell? Who's your competition? There's another dairy producer over here. What are you going to do, with them in the same space? What makes your product unique? So, the business, going for these investors, the readiness portion of it is the same readiness for writing any of these grants. And that's getting your homework done, knowing your business, and then, having your numbers ready so you can tell your story to be able to advance your farming project.
Okay, great. Another one that I've got is, what are some of the most common or impactful mistakes or inadequacies in grant submissions?
I have to say, not answering the questions. People are in a hurry and they they submit. As I said, I was reviewing some things this week, and they're very strong proposals, but they left half of the requests, the things that the funder was requesting, out of the application, which makes it an incomplete application and can be grounds for immediate dismissal. So answer the questions. Um, I would also say another mistake is writing a grant for something that doesn't fit you. If you don't, look at who the funder has funded in the past and look at for what they say they fund. And if your operation doesn't qualify or this particular project doesn't meet the specifications, I'd say don't even bother, take your partner out for dinner and use the hours in that way, because there's no sense in submitting an application that doesn't fit the funder's parameters. I welcome any of the other grant writers on this call about chiming in about any mistakes, maybe drop some in the chat.
Yeah, and if anybody here has applied for a grant and not gotten it and gotten feedback, we could all probably use a hand understanding what some of those things were. I was recently on a grant review team, and we each individually went through the grants and gave feedback, and then we got together and we talked about what we thought, what the review team's impressions were. And one of the common themes was, um, not enough validated detail. On the grant review team, we had a lot of subject matter experts, and the grants were regarding meat processing expansion. And the grant review teams oftentimes, at least in this one experience that I had, we had people who knew the benchmarks. They knew how many sides of beef can fit on a rail, how many linear feet of rail it takes to fit a halved or quartered beef. So when someone is saying, I'm going to use this grant money to expand my cold storage, and this is how much it's going to expand my cold storage, therefore alleviating my bottleneck and increasing throughput at the plant level, therefore affecting my community in this way, and the numbers aren't right, they're like wildly inflated, that's a problem, or at least it was for this particular grant review team. And it was things like that where people who were applying were really shooting from the hip, and it came up as a red flag to the grant review team because the numbers just weren't based in common reality. And so I don't know if that's something that you've heard before, but that was really a theme at the time. Let's see. Lane shares. Um, we were denied an NPEP grant from the last round. I'm having an informal call with USDA staff tomorrow to discuss. We worked closely with our local U.S. Small Business Development Center, and the staff there were dumbfounded by the denial, saying information was missing. That interesting, Lane. I don't know if you would be interested in sharing what you find out with us. I think it would be really cool to have a webinar in the future where we talk about like maybe some of us who have been denied grants, we get on and we talk about our experiences and the feedback we got, kind of a part two to this one. I think there's more than enough grant funds to go around for the most part, and we could all really benefit from that.
Yeah, I unmuted and be happy to do that. We also work closely with the Flower Hill Institute and had them review our the grant as I was writing it. And it wasn't my first rodeo of writing grant. I've done large economic development grants for clients in the state of Florida before, so we were left scratching our head, and I'm looking forward to the call tomorrow to try to find out, what was missing from the business plan or the 2-year financial projections, which is what they said we didn't include, because the SB Small Business Development Center did our third party financial feasibility study, and it was exhaustive in the amount of details from our business plan and in the projections that they had laid out. And that's why they were scratching their head. So
Yeah, that's it, Lane. Let's follow up. It's really interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that.
all right.
Another comment from Nick at Bottle Farm. He says a common feedback we see on grants is where the remainder of funds coming is where are the remainder of the funds coming from if the grant is not covering it all? Reviewers want to see that this is a viable project. Abby and I just saw this together on a grant for a project that we're both kind of working on. And that was a deep concern, and the owner of the business said, hey, don't worry about it. We got it. And they wanted more than that. So yeah, that's a great point, Nick. Really, really glad that you brought that up. If the grant's for 200K and your equipment that you're buying is 250K, you definitely have to show them where that money's coming from. Don't tell them it's under the mattress. They explain to them exactly where it's coming from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If your project is bigger than that particular grant, it's wonderful that you can prove that there's funds in the bank, or that you have a line of credit or a bridge loan. I just finished working on some projects in Louisiana, and they're grants for farmers, but they're reimbursement grants. And there's organizations that will help you with bridge loans that'll cover that, so they'll be able to help you get that piece, and then they'll get reimbursed. So showing that you have the ability to do the reimbursement grants, or that you have, as I mentioned, a line of credit, or that you have cash under the mattress. That's hard to show, but that you have the ability to have cash in the bank. So often a bank will write a letter, and I've worked with clients where I've said, hey, I said, just get a letter from your bank that just shows your account balance. And I wasn't expecting it to come back at like, here's this little teeny group and they're like 2.7 million. I'm like, okay, that's enough to cover it. Point being is that the banks are always more than happy enough to give you, what is your own information, right?
Yeah, great point. I've got a couple more here, and we got one from Kristen. Kristen says, besides your advice on starting small, do you have any other advice for those of us that are new to grant applications?
Yeah, do it. Just do it. Start small, be consistent, and don't expect for immediate success. But write some small ones and you'll get better. And then all of a sudden, you're just going to get this letter in the mail or an email that says, congratulations, you've been funded. And you're like, hot damn. But do it. Just come on in. The water's fine.
One last one, unless anybody else has anything. Can grant writers be paid out of grant awards?
Usually, no. Um, usually the grant writers need to be paid outside of that particular funding mechanism. And many grant writers will do things in a different way. It could be a fee-based service, or it could be hourly, or you could hire a grant writer to write the entire project and do all the legwork. And you can hire a grant writer just to do the review of the application package prior to submitting. And that's often a great way to start working with a grant writer, is just say, hey, I'm going to do all the work, but I'd like to submit. Can you review my package? And most grant writers will charge a reduced fee for just a review of a final package.
Okay, I have one final question. I have found it helpful in the past to have had the privilege of being a grant reviewer. And so that has taught me a lot about writing grants and the narratives portions and the financial projection portions. Uh, how would you recommend that someone who doesn't have access in that way, seeing both sides of the fence, how would you recommend someone getting their hands on grant applications? Is that publicly available after the fact, or is it acceptable to go to someone who won or did not and say, hey, can I look at your grant? I'd love some inspiration or to understand like what someone else did that worked.
So maybe that can be part of part two of this workshop, where when we talk about what got funded and what didn't, maybe we can even make space on the site for, examples. And I think there might even be some examples on the Niche Mead site already of some funded proposals. So maybe we should flesh that out as an important resource.
I love
Uh,
that. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, good. Yeah, great,
let's
Abby.
do
Thank
it.
you.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay, awesome. Well, everybody, that's it for our questions for today. And I think that this is just kind of scratching the surface of what we can talk about. And again, that's why we have the technical assistance program at NPAN. I placed the link in the chat. We wanted to kind of get the conversation going today. I know a lot of people are feeling like maybe they missed the boat and maybe the grants are there's always going to be more and we want to be ready ahead of time. So take advantage of the technical assistance now while we're in the in-between, so that when the next round comes up, you are ready. Grant readiness. That's the phrase, right? And so please do take advantage of that opportunity. And we'll look forward to hearing about hopefully some successes with some of these group members here as MCAP and MPEP round two come out. So thanks to everybody. Next month, we've got an Ask Me Anything with Trevor Morones of Control Point Consulting. We're going to be talking about food safety, quality assurance at the small plant level. If you have a hard time getting your crew on board with QC and QA, it can still be achieved even with a crew of 3 to 5 people. It just looks a little bit different. So join us next month, the last Thursday of July. And Abby, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I learned a lot in this last hour and look forward to working with you more in the future. Thanks,
Likewise.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. I'll look forward to talking to you.